Never seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bait and I make plans for 7:45 and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Who's going fishing? Hey everyone, my name is Michael Consul, filling in for Mr. Scotty Martin himself. Scotty's at Horwood Lake Lodge, so he might be joining us, he might not. It's just a Wi-Fi all the way up north, might be a little spotty, but if not, we have an amazing show because I have my co-host backstage, Mr. Mark Beehler, who will be joining us. We have from Shimano, Big Jim McLaughlin. We have Lawrence Gunther and, of course, Jason Barnucz, the weekly lineup. So welcome, everyone. And I just want to say hi to Trisha and Luke. Brad is in the house. Sean, how you doing? Terry is there. Robbie, how you doing? Adele, haven't seen you in a long time. Sarah, well, there's some big anglers on here that are on the top of the CFN fish off leaderboard. James Shembry's in the house. Thanks, James, for tuning in. Erica is here. Rocky is here. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Tony, what's up? Richard, hi, everyone. So let's see if we've worked out the technical difficulties with my good friend, one of the captains for the CFN Fish Off TV show, which we'll be filming this summer, Mr. Mark Beehler. Let's see if Mark is able to join us. Hey, Mark, I know we're having some Wi-Fi issues, but let's see if we can work this out. Otherwise, I'm going to be hosting this show all by myself. Erica's here. Are you in the same house as Erica? Maybe you could tell all that massive family of yours, hey, get off Netflix. Hey, get off Minecraft because I got to go live with my console. So, hey, Haley, how's it going? Barry Trache and Jesse. Dwayne is in the house. We got a good show lined up for you. Yeah, I see a black screen with Mark Beehler. Mark, I'm not sure if it's going to work out, but if not, then just going to have to tap dance without you. But if it is going to work, I'll leave you on the screen right there, Mark, and we will see how it goes. Feel free to unmute your mic and speak if it works out. But if not, we're just going to keep moving along. So we are in week 2 of the CFN Fish Off. Actually, we just finished week 2. Week 2 ended on Sunday. And that means you got to get all your fish in. We do have a 1-day grace period for our next Shimano draw. So the week 2 draw was any trout, any salmon, and any char. And we have that week 2 draw tomorrow. So make sure to get all your trout, all your salmon, all your char. You could have caught it in week 1 and you could have caught it in week 2, but yesterday was the deadline. Make sure to put them all in because our judges are going to verify all those species as well as put your name both on the leaderboard to assign how many points that fish got you, but also as important, we're going to put your name on our CFN fish off wheel to make sure that you have a ballot, because we're going to give out not one, but 2 Shimano rod and reel symmetry combos. And that reminds me, last week we were having some scoreboard issues, which means tomorrow we're having 2 draws. We're having 1 draw for week 1, which is our perch and walleye sauger draw. So that will be tomorrow. And then on top of that, we're going to have our week 2 draw. So there's going to be some lucky people out there because we're giving 4 Shimano combos away. Let me just see what the people in the chat box are talking about. Roselle is saying that they got a monster 8-inch rainbow under the wire. And that's what it's all about. No matter where you are on the scoreboard, you can qualify to win some free Shimano. So you could be, how many teams were there? I think there was like 200 and like close to 260 teams. So even if you're in 200th place and there's 199 teams ahead of you, that one 8-inch rainbow trout gives you 1 ballot into our Shimano week 2 draw. And regardless of where you are in the standings, you could win. You could win a pair of Shimano rod and reel combos. And this year we are giving out the symmetry combos. Now, I haven't announced this yet. And while we're waiting for Mark Beehler to log back on and our first guest, Mr. Jim McLaughlin from Shimano, this is what you could win if you are first, second, or third. So if you are in 3rd place, you automatically win a Shimano combo. The same combo, the Shimano Symmetry Rod and Reel combo. 3rd place, automatically. If you fall in 2nd place, you get the same combo again. Thank you, Shimano. So the Symmetry Shimano combo, plus you get a little prize pack on top of that. And if you are in 1st place, you get the Shimano combo again, and you get a bigger prize pack than the 2nd place team. So 1st, 2nd, and 3rd all get Shimano combos, in addition to those in week 1 that win, those in week 2, those in week 3, and those in week 4. So that is 14 Shimano rod and reel combos that we're giving away. Week 1, 2, 3, 4, 3rd place, 2nd place, 1st place, all of you get Shimano combos. So thank you so much to all those participating. And of course, thank you to Shimano for giving up all those symmetry combos. And Big Jim is in the house. I'm going to ask him if he's tried out one of those symmetry combos. But before we call on Big Jim, let's see if we can get Mark Beehler in here.
Hello.
Mr. Mark Beehler.
Did I get this sorted out?
I think you got it sorted out.
Yeah. Just so everybody knows, I am on my wife's phone. I need a new phone. It's outdated.
Phone that fell in the. Is that the same phone that fell in the water when you had the canoe tip, Mark? I hope that's not the same phone.
No, I think I got this phone after that happened. Thanks for bringing that up again. But since then, Erica got another new phone, and it's a higher model, blah blah blah. So
yeah,
I just said to her, let me try your phone and listen to this. It's
You demanded my phone.
so it's not the Wi-Fi. It's nothing else. It's just the phone.
There it is. We
here
figured
we
out
are.
the problem.
Yeah.
We figured out the problem.
Yeah, that took. We were fooling around with this since 5:30.
Since 5:30. Yeah. So, hey, Mark, before we call on Mr. Big
And we had to kick all the kids offline.
That's what I did too. I told all the kids from 7 to 9, no one goes on Wi-Fi because me and Mark have a show to run.
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
Okay.
Hey,
well, so
Mark,
if you see me commenting,
yeah,
that's Erica. Okay, everybody, because I'm just going to pass her my phone so she's able to watch this, and I'll get her on here real quick, and then I'm all yours.
All right. So, Mark,
Here we go.
So, Mark, quick question before we call on Big Jim. Is we release all 3 captains for the CFN Fish Off who will be filming this summer for the Sportsman Channel and WFN.
East your phone. I don't feel like I can hold back.
I can hear Erica in the background. So the question I have for you, Mark, is Jared Littlejohn and Bill Landry. What do you fear most about those 2 captains?
The fact that they have a lot of family support.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've got the kids are out there, everything. Yeah. It's going to be a challenge. That's for sure. They're both excellent at multi-species fishing. So, but we have Ontario waters, so I'm hoping that gives us a slight advantage. I've been doing some homework. I want to try and find some more species if possible than I was able to find last time. Mind you, it's 2 weeks, not 6 weeks. So that poses a challenge too. So everything's more condensed. I don't know if we're able to knock off that many species. It's going to be in the dead of summer. You never know what the weather's going to be like, the temperatures. You don't know how your fishing spots are going to be in the middle of the summer.
Yep.
There's going to be a lot of things that are going to be so much different from the first one. And I'm interested to see how this all plays out. But at the end of it all, I want to make sure that it's fun, it's entertaining, and hopefully everybody catches a lot of fish. And I'm sure that they're going to be grinding it out there, and they're going to get their numbers. They're going to get their fish. It's going to be a good competition. It's going to be interesting. I can't wait to see this.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. So it's only a 2-week-long competition, but that expands over 3 different weekends. And each captain, so Mark, Bill, and Jared, gets to pick one family member as part of their team, in addition to 2 other anglers from 2 different provinces. So I can guess who your family member is, Mark, but do you want to let us know who your family member is that you'll be fishing with?
It's going to be my wife, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
That'd be awesome. It'll be great to see Erica's catches on TV.
I know my son Landon is going to be going out. He said he's going to go out too.
Yep.
Maybe I'll get Eric out too. Eric might come out with me.
And they're all under
Erica.
They're 17 and under, so they would count under the kids rule.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
You try and get as many lines in the water as possible.
Yeah.
Hopefully in front of fish.
Yeah.
And the fish take the bait. That's the whole idea. That's the whole name of the game, right?
Yeah.
So we'll go out, probably try out pan fishing, see if we can knock some numbers off, some different species off with the kids. My wife is going to be able to fish every day for those 2 weeks. I don't even know what my work schedule is going to be like yet, whether I'm going to be on my regular day shift or if I'm going to be doing shift work, which
it'll be interesting.
It gives me more time, but less time. It's hard to say because I might be covering for somebody who's on holidays. We'll see. I'll try and arrange that with somebody else. Maybe I'll just stay on days. But one way or another, this is going to be a good go. This is going to be interesting, and I'm glad I'm not facing up with you and Ken heading out to the West Coast and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's just too much. I can't do that.
I think the key with any team is time on the water. And
that's
I
right.
think that's the key, with any team. So let's
right.
let's bring on our first guest, because out of all of us, he probably has more time underwater than all of us combined. And that's Big Jim McLaughlin. But before we bring on Big Jim, here's a word from one of our key sponsors. Mr. Big Jim McLaughlin, how are you, my friend?
There he
What's going
is.
on, guys?
How you doing, Jim?
Good, good. Good to see you on, Mark.
Yeah, with good Wi-Fi this time.
There you go.
Yeah.
Mine has its moments here, but since we went to the satellite stuff, I need a part-time job for it, but it's all good. It's always there and it always works, and I have to have it. A lot of times I can't say, I can't do this, I can't do that. Got no Wi-Fi. That doesn't cut it.
Well, I found out it wasn't my Wi-Fi after all. It was my phone. So I'll be going in very shortly there any day and upgrading. So
Yeah, I think I'm getting close to a new phone too. I noticed that Tammy started complaining about her phone. I remind her, when I complain about the phone, it's the operator. When she complains about it, there's something wrong with it.
My phone. Mark.
Hey, when you're off for the 2 weeks there fishing, your deal, you should adopt me for a morning.
I would love to.
That would be amazing.
I would love to.
Yeah.
I have other I've got there's something I'm going to be doing, but I can't divulge. I can't let.
Can I
these
go to
other
jail?
teams know. No. But I just can't. I don't want to share it because I don't want to give it away to these other teams.
All good.
Yeah. I've got a strategy. I've got a strategy in mind. So.
Ooh.
Yeah. We'll see if it pans out. See if it works.
You can add Big Jim to that strategy now.
Well, he's bringing in a Lindner. I can hear the other guys all just.
It's not that kind of strategy, but Jim, I might take you up on that offer.
Yeah. As soon as we get the summer issue done here, I'll have a bit of time.
Okay.
I'm actually gonna go the summer boatless.
Oh boy.
They had somebody that really wanted to buy my demo.
Okay. Already.
Like wanted it really bad. So I agreed today to let them go, and they've got boats at the marina there. If I need one, I can go and get one.
Yeah.
But I agreed to let my demo go. And I'm gonna get some pretty extensive therapy done on my IT band in my legs, which is basically what holds you up. I've always had trouble with it from the time, like when I was 20 years old, I had trouble with it. And it's just got to the point now that the back of my legs is basically seized, and for me to walk and stand, it's really becoming a problem. And if my legs weren't as strong as they are, I'd be in real grief. And it's just the luck of the draw. It's the way I was born. Has nothing to do with being older or being big or anything like that.
Okay.
It's just what it is. So I've got a couple of people there that it's a thing where the therapy has to be done daily, and they want me to do it for a couple of weeks every day.
I know.
And they had to look at me this morning, and they were like, one of the ladies like she said to me, like, and this is the second time I've had this used to me, was like she felt like she was on candid camera.
Oh wow.
Like, yeah, she didn't believe that an IT band could be in this much grief, because it comes right down the side around my knees where it extends, and where it is.
Yeah.
And I just if I didn't have the muscle in my legs from all the weights in the last five years, I'd be in some grief. So I want to get that fixed, and it's probably a great year to do a favor like that for the marina and let them sell the boat. He's a really good customer. He's bought, I think over the last 25 years, he's bought 4 or 5 of my boats.
Oh,
So
the same
yeah,
guy. Oh, wow.
yeah, he's got one now that's brand new, hasn't even been wet. So
Right.
it's a win for everybody. And that's the kind of thing. Like, London has been wonderful to me for 30 years. Never said boo to send me a boat to use for the year. And this is just me giving something back to them. It's
Well,
and to the marina. And when you do it for a living, you have to do things like this.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not that I don't know people that I can't say, hey, you going fishing today? Yeah, I'm in the back seat.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
if you want to get out there on the water out this way, Jim, by all means.
I appreciate that, buddy.
it's
Because I had
It's an open invite. Open invite, okay?
I appreciate that. I had 3 calls today from guys saying to me, so we have to go fishing this summer now. I hear your boat sold.
The only
So
drawback, though, is that it's not a Lund.
But
And because
I haven't been in a Ranger for a while.
A Ranger. No, it's a nice boat. It's a smaller Prince craft. I've been in your boat. I was out in your boat last year, I think it was.
Oh, with David Jung.
Yes.
Yeah. In fact,
Yeah.
David used my boat last year more days than I did practicing for tournaments.
Yeah.
Because he got caught in the COVID deal with boats too.
Same thing, yeah.
And they were going to deliver his boat to him in like November or something.
He just
He
said,
said,
never
why
mind.
would I? Yeah. Why would I pay for a boat, not get it for 6-7 months?
Yeah.
And then it's a year old when I get it theoretically because of the date on it. People don't realize that.
That's right.
So it's they ordered my boat for next year today, so it'll be here late in the fall.
Okay.
And they have everything there. They have all the electronics. They have the electric motor. They have everything that goes on it. So he said to me, as soon as the snow is gone in the spring, you'll be able to come pick it up. It'll be done.
So David can't lean on you this year.
Not this year, no.
Not
That's what he
this
said
year.
to me the other day. He had three questions for me. Do you want to come out with me next Friday or Thursday? Is it okay if me and Steve stay at the house? We've both been vaccinated twice. And did you get your boat yet?
Yeah.
So I said I can answer yes to 2, but not the other one. So I said I haven't got the boat yet, but now it's gone. So it's all good though. Say someone's a guy that's bought 5, I think it's 5 or 6 Lund boats over my lifetime. That's the kind of guy that you need to do something like this with.
Absolutely.
He'll remember that forever. I mean, he's going to buy a Lund for the rest of his life now.
Oh, for sure.
If he has to, right? But
Well, he's already been in 5 of them from the sounds of it.
yeah. So the guy that's usually on here on Monday night with me, like, what's his name there again? The short, fat guy.
I think his name is Mr. Martin.
Oh, you're Barnucz, and you told me you were going to help me trash him, and I'm out right off the bat.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's fishing right now. He doesn't
Yeah,
do
he
it.
is. He sent me a couple of texts there, and because I texted him, I said, "Hey, are we on tonight? I haven't seen or heard anything." So I mentioned it to Steve Shaw, and he came back to me and said, "Yeah, you guys we're gonna do it together tonight." I thought that was really cool. So it's all good. It's all good.
I have a question for you, Jim.
Shoot.
If Mark is making arrangements to take you out during his 2-week fishing competition, the name of the game is trying to catch as many species as possible and the biggest fish within that species. What would be like 1 or 2 species that you could tell Mark, hey, Mark, if you take me out, I can guarantee you a 4-point fish because it's going to be big?
That's a tough one. If you donated 2 or 3 days, I would almost go out on the limb on that for a 5-pound largemouth. But the problem is what I'm doing. If you haven't done a lot of it, and dunking deep weed lines. If you haven't done a lot of jig fishing on weed lines, I've watched a lot of guys that are really good fishermen flounder doing that because it's something that they just haven't done. Like you're used to fishing the river market, a lot of open water and edges of weeds and stuff. And it's a real different deal when you get into weeds that are so thick that you have to use a 3/4 ounce jig just to be sure it goes down through the weeds to get to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
That's I noticed when I went out with Scotty and Red, that really frustrated them. It frustrated them that they couldn't even get the lure to go to the bottom because they would set the hook and the lure would come out and hit them in the face. And I'd say, well, that's because it never sank. It was like this far underneath it. It went in, you threw it in, it started to sink in the weeds. It caught the first weed and it sat there. And then a panfish pecks at it. You think it's a bass, you know. So it's one of those things. But yeah, a largemouth would be a good bet. But hey, I know some spots down around you there too. You're launching Cornwall there. I've got some pretty good spots for largemouths there. I was out there with Mercer once, and we banged off some pretty big largemouths, like fish that were close to 6 pounds.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I don't know.
I know they're around.
Yeah, they are in there. You have to run a whole bunch of spots. I mean, like they get on these bulrush points. They get on rock flats with little bits of milfoil on them.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. There's a few of them there that are not far from the dam. If you launch in Cornwall and you go down, this is where you can go down and you can cross into the other channel if you don't follow the main channel.
Yeah.
And you cross over where the boats go through where they go through that real skinny part above the island. I'm not familiar with the name, but there's a lot of smallmouth there too. That's where when I fished with Gussie there, we spent a lot of time drifting a couple of flats there. But
there's some really heavy current there. Some big smallmouth hang out in that.
Yeah. Man, I've even seen the changes in that though from like a decade ago.
The changes are unreal. I was out yesterday, for example, looking. Today's Monday, so yeah, it was yesterday, and I went to check out my largie spots for this time of year, and they were gone. They were outie. Now I don't know if it's because they were picked on too much during the catch and release part of the season, or I'm not sure.
I think they've just spawned. Yeah, they've spawned and left.
They've definitely spawned and left. You could see that they were there, and I guess that's a good thing if we show up and it's after the fact. But I also went and I checked out some of my summer spots, and instead of finding largies on them, I was finding smallies. And some big ones.
High?
Some big ones. Water is high. Yeah.
Yeah, when they have access, when fish have access and that current gets shallow, they'll use it. They'll go into it. There's no ifs, ands, ors, or buts.
Yeah.
And there's bunches of them, and they're really aggressive compared to largemouth.
They are, for sure.
So you never know. Maybe they just get in there and start doing their thing. And plus, other fish come there too. It's really funny because I had a guy call me the other day, and he had been out fishing a little local lake that I used to like to fish over by Ottawa. I used to guide on it a lot, fish in it a lot, and it's got a lot of walleyes and stuff in it. And he said to me, I can't believe it. He says, you know that lure the time I guided you, or you guided me, and you gave me the lure when I left it. What I gave him was a square bill, just a little square bill like this. Mm-hmm. And I gave him one of these, and he says, I still have it. And he says, I couldn't believe on the weekend, like that's a bass lure. And he says, I was fishing and I was catching walleyes on it.
Oh, for sure.
And then it just made me think, like I said to him, well, nobody sent the walleyes a memo saying this is the bass lure, you can't bite this.
That's right.
It's what it is. And he said, oh, well, I thought you had. And there's a guy that doesn't fish a lot, doesn't take the time to learn it. I mean, he's a busy guy. And when he gets a day to fish, he's really he's totally respectful to the fish, everybody around him. He's just a really, really nice guy. And he just doesn't know. He hasn't done it. There's nothing wrong with that. He has to learn. Yeah. And then he says to me, and the other thing too, he says, I caught some, I tried to catch a smallmouth bass, but he said I was catching walleyes on it too. And he said I was using a Ned rig. And you've probably heard me say this with him before. Everybody thinks like the Ned rig is the hottest thing going. Well, what's a Ned? Like a Ned, it's a twister tail that the tail's gone off.
Yeah.
When I used to fish, the fish would bite the tail off. You'd take it off and put another one on. Now you use a thing that's exactly like that, and it's the greatest coming. It's the greatest thing. And we had like a 15-minute chat on the phone about using all these different lures. And I told him, I said, I won a walleye tournament on Rice Lake years ago where I caught, over the 2 days, we weighed 6 fish each day. The first day, all 6. were caught on a spinnerbait over top of weeds in about 5 feet of water, which is where he fished the square bill on this little lake. There's big flats on it with a milfoil about this much water over top of the weeds, and he was just holding the rod high and reeling it right, and they would come up out of the weeds and grab it. Plus, it was pretty cloudy. The day was out and windy, so it's just a perfect day for something like that to happen. But when we won that tournament, we went back the second day, and I mean, it was absolutely lights out how hard the fish were hitting. Like they would crush it, like just about pull a rod out of your hand. It was like a smallmouth hitting a spinnerbait, and a lot of these walleyes were like, 3.5 to 4.5 pounds, and they just rip it. And then we got down to the far end of the bay, and we started catching fish that were like 6 and 7 pounds, and they're just crushing it. So stupid me pulls out a buzzbait. Now, how many guys honestly pull out a buzzbait to fish for walleye? So I'm bringing a spinnerbait back. Yeah, I'm bringing a spinnerbait back this far under the surface, and the walleyes are crushing it.
Wow!
So I start throwing a buzzbait, great big old Bill Norman buzzbait.
Wow!
About third cast, I get like a 9-pound walleye.
Oh, I never got that.
Eats the buzzbait. It's got the blade up between its eyes, like up its nose. Like it just came at it from the back. Just absolutely crushed it. And I caught 2 more that were back in that 3.5, 4.5 pound type range. But I caught 3 walleyes on a buzzbait like that, all nice fish, and like they weren't flukes. These fish were just looking to kill, and it seemed that the faster you reeled the lure, the more noise it made, the more bites you got. And we got to the point where we could barely keep the spinnerbaits in the water when they were coming back. Like the blades would blow out once in a while when they were coming. Yeah. And you just slow it back down, and thunk you get one. Wow. So they were following it in those weeds. It was just an incredible experience for, and once again, back to that same old thing, bass lures. People look at a spinnerbait. Ted Takasaki won a big walleye, a monster walleye tournament in the States, reeling spinnerbaits through the tops of trees in a reservoir, trolling spinnerbaits.
Well, it's like paddle tails. You use paddle tails with smallies. You use paddle tails with largies. Use them with walleye.
Yeah, you know how many walleyes I've caught in bass tournaments dropping a gambler 5-inch paddle tail in a pocket in the weeds in the Kawarthas? And nice walleyes too, like a lot of 25, 28-inch fish. They eat that stuff. Nobody wrote walleye only, bass only.
It'd be like your same with your hair jigs. How many different types of species can you catch with them?
Everything.
Right.
Most versatile thing that exists.
Right.
Yeah. I got to talk about something too. So I go down behind the house here on Saturday night. I found some time. I went down there. I plopped myself down back there, and I fished for 90 minutes. Didn't catch a thing. Nothing. Didn't see a fish. Didn't hear a pop in the pads. You know the way you hear a panfish picking the bugs off the bottom of the pads, you hear that little popping sound. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking right at the pads, and I'm listening. It's all quieted down. It's glass calm. You don't hear a thing. There isn't a ripple. I go in the boathouse, and I look out the boathouse because the light comes in under the door. You can see. I didn't see a sunfish. I saw nothing. So I fished for about an hour and a half, and I thought, oh, well, fish win. I'm out of here. I know when to lick my wounds and go watch a movie on Space Channel. It's one of those things. So I go back down last night. I throw the frog out. I made about 10 casts with the frogs. I got 2 blow-ups on it. But one of them, the weeds are so thick, it's stupid. One of them was probably 10 inches away from the frog. I actually saw the fish come up. He was like this far from the frog and to the side, not behind it or something. Not that I was reeling too fast. And I had a couple like that, nothing. So I take out my old favorite. I've got it sitting right there. They're, rigged up, the old Archelon. And I dropped that in there where they were. They wouldn't touch it. They wouldn't look at it. So I get the other rod out. So I put this down. Huh. So see the difference in the size?
Yeah.
Yep.
I immediately start catching them in the exact same spots with this. Immediately. And it just, it just goes to show you that I always tell guys, you hear them talk when you watch Bassmasters, they talk about adjustments. That's an adjustment. Simple thing like that. So I catch 4 fish in 15 minutes. where I just saw a couple and caught nothing in the 10 before. You know, whose hand is that? I see.
Erica.
She's bringing you beers. I know it.
Oh,
He's got the intravenous in his arm. She's putting beer in.
Jim, I got a question for you.
she should be watching the live right now.
No, I'm not right now. Thank you very much.
All right, Jim, here's the question I have for you. Related to exactly what you're talking about. I know when I'm on the boat sometimes, there's always a mental debate. Do I switch my presentation or do I switch spots? And how do you decipher when I've just got to go to a different spot, or let me try these couple presentations first before I switch spots?
Oh, if I'm confident there's fish there, I'll always switch presentations. And usually I'll make a big change in size.
Okay.
Sometimes if I'm fishing for crappies and stuff like that, color seems to make a difference. I don't think color makes as much of a difference when you're fishing for bass or walleyes, or well, maybe walleyes a bit more, but especially for bass, I don't think, because everything I use is like a dirty color. Like, to me, that slight little bit of violet on the tail, you can't see it, but it's actually a really opaque violet, and you can see that body's got a little bit of blue flake in it here and there. You can see the weeds on it from, but I mean, this, stuff like that to me is funky. I'm more like this, something dirty, little bit of flake in it, that type of stuff. When we used to use something really gaudy, we used to call it fishing ugly, and it really used to work for walleyes. We put on something that was a 5-inch grub with like chartreuse orange and a yellow tail with a dot on it or something. Chuck it out there. Sure enough, they weren't biting. You'd get a bite on that. They just had to bite it because I don't know. But always seemed to be when we fished ugly, we caught a fish. But sometimes little things like that can just make a huge difference. And I see so many people, just like the T-shirt says, you can't just keep doing the same thing. I talked to guys,
No.
well, I want to learn to use a spinnerbait. So I went out today and I didn't catch any fish. I said, well, what else did you do? Well, nothing. I threw a spinnerbait all day. I said, so like after you fish for an hour, you didn't think, well, geez, either there's no fish I need to move, or I need to put something different down there. Like if they're not going to chase it, just like topwater is the classic example. I know more guys that have been burned in tournaments because in practice or on the first day, they caught a bunch of fish on the topwater, and here it is, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They're still flogging the topwater and they haven't got a bite.
Yeah.
You really can't, and it's got nothing to do with tournaments either. If you want to catch fish all the time, you can't dwell on the past.
No.
You have to move forward. Like people always say to me, "What's your favorite lure?" And it's the thing that I last picked out of a fish's mouth.
That was a good answer.
They're always changing it up on you.
That's
they're
my
making
favorite lure, and it can change in 15 minutes. I've seen days where you start off with a black jig with a black pork on the back in the old days, and you weren't getting nothing, and then you change and you do something different, and you start catching them, and then later in the day you're not getting bit, so you go back to a black jig with a black pork, and they just clunk it. It's one after the other, and that's why you have to do. You can't just chuck the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You got to mix it up. You don't want to just go through the tackle box and try everything for 5 casts. That's there comes a point when you have to move too. But you also have to remember that because you caught fish here back in the spring, they're not there now. They don't live there after the spring. They go there to make babies. They stick around for a little while. They pork up a bit, and then they go do what they're going to do for the summer. But you really need to pay attention to that stuff, and you need to govern yourself. When Rocky and I were fishing the high level team tournaments in Canada, we would do sometimes if things weren't good, we would sit down and talk about it. Or I'd say, let's do such and such. He'd turn and look at me and go, give me a water. I'd grab a water for him, a water for me, and we'd sit in the boat and look at each other. I'd have to explain why we wanted to do what we wanted to do. We'd actually debate it in the boat, and like we're the best of friends. We still are. I mean, it's not that we would fight about it. It was, we knew enough to know when things were not right, and somebody would always speak up. And then after a year together, it just got to be that if somebody said, let's do such and such, we'd just go do it.
Right.
Because if our minds thought a lot alike, and that hurt us the first year, because we wanted to do the same thing all the time because we did a lot of the same things. And when we expanded a little bit, we started doing different things. Just changed the whole, the whole way we fished, and we're pretty successful at it.
Jim, we have a couple minutes left before we call on Lawrence. We did have a question in the chat box from Christina.
Yeah.
And she wants to know, two-part question. In terms of a 5-pound largemouth, approximately how long would that be? Because she caught a 19-incher, but she didn't weigh it. So she's trying to estimate how heavy this 19-incher would be that she caught.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I'm thinking like four and change. If I can see a picture of it, if it's a thick fish with a gut, it could weigh close to 5, but you generally got to get to 20 inches to weigh 5. That's just ballpark. Like fish are different. I mean, you go to the Bay of Quinte and you catch a 30-inch walleye, and it'll weigh 10, 11, sometimes 11 and a half pounds. You catch a 30-inch walleye in the lake here, and it'll weigh 9, 8 and a half. There's the fish are really different. How thick they are in different areas. I have a buddy that has a. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, I think you're bang on with that. Like we have.
Yeah, I have a buddy that has a small lake that he fishes. He has the parents have a cottage on it, and they get up there once in a while, and they catch largemouths out of there. And they've caught largemouth that weigh like well over 5 pounds, like 5.8, 5.6, and they're like 20.5 inches long.
Yeah, they're very long.
Absolute slobs. Like
Here,
they're like this long and like this deep.
Here I find our fish seem to be a little shorter, but heavier.
Yeah,
They're like just ballooned right up, Even the walleye. And
I got to try to find a picture for you here really quick before I let you go.
While you're looking for that, Jim, Christina, this bass behind me, that's 21 inches, but it was fat. It was 6.5 pounds. So I know what Mark and Jim are saying. It totally depends on the girth, but
yeah,
usually 5-pounders, I say, Mark, probably have to crack that 20-inch mark.
At least.
Yeah, and like well in excess too. Like I mean, there's a smallmouth that I caught a few years ago in the river with Chong, and when you look at that,
yeah,
see my hand,
yeah,
see the gill plate.
Yeah.
You know how big my hand is. You see the gut on that fish, and you know how big that fish is, eh? And when it sort of shocked Chong too when he saw it. Damn, I wish I could find this, but yeah, no, there's fish out there that are just absolute giants, and it's not the pictures that always make them look so big. This particular fisher I caught with one of the ones we caught in the river by Cornwall there with. Dave Mercer.
Well, I got one yesterday, Jim. It was, if it wasn't 6 pounds, it was pushing 6 pounds.
Oh, nice.
Like there's some big fish. I didn't handle it, but they're still closed here on Zone 20.
Oh, that's right, eh?
Yeah.
Is the largemouth closed or just?
Nope, Largie's opened, and I'll have to read it again. If I'm not mistaken, they word it the first Saturday of July is when smallmouth open. So, but they're biting. You can't stop them from biting, and even though you're not typically in those areas looking for them, they're still there. Like I said, I was looking in largemouth spots and catching smallmouth. Shaking my head.
This is where you get screwed trying to find a fish on your phone, and it tells you got 2,000 pictures. See that? For instance, taking fish. See that fish there looks huge.
Yeah.
That's a 4-pounder.
Yeah.
You got a good photographer then.
Yeah, it's all about angles and how you hold them. I wish I could find this one fish for you to show you the size of the damn thing. Oh, we're getting close. Here it is.
All I know is if it looks big in your hands, Jim, then it's a big fish because you're a big guy.
There we go.
See my hand on it?
Yeah.
Absolute giant fish. We had a great day that day. You saw me with the square bill.
Giant.
We just was looking for a largemouth with it, and we caught fish like this, like just truckloads of them. You can see the old Kamara rod with the round reel, eh?
Where was that?
Yeah.
Cut of reels. Yeah.
Where were you fishing?
Just outside of Cornwall. That was the day that Dave and I. There's Dave just after he pulled it out. We found this dog drowning in the river.
Oh wow!
And we pulled it out, and he wouldn't leave us, so we brought him back to the island. And here we were later in the day. He stayed with us all day. We saw him, and he was actually under the surface. And I said to Dave, "Oh my God, a dog just went by under the surface." And he looks at me, he's like, "Yeah, right." Like what Dave's like. You can imagine the exchange of words between us. There was more profanities in about 3 seconds than you can imagine. And then he sees it at the front of the boat. And he looks at me, goes, "Get the net." And he's got the electric and he's following it. And it comes up and goes back down, takes a big gasp. It was caught in the current and it was licked. They couldn't swim anymore.
Right.
And we got half of it in the net, and it had a collar. We got a hold of the collar and we dragged it up, and it ran from one end of the boat to the other, jumping, skipping. It jumped into my arm. You saw the size of that dog. It's like 90 pounds.
Yeah.
It jumped into my arms, just landed in my chest and my arms. Like this dog knew that we saved it. It knew that we saved it. And we brought it back and we let it go on the we're assuming it came off of there was an island there, and it was assuming it came off it. And it was funny because I was fishing with Mark Thorpe a few weeks after for muskies, and I showed him the picture, and he told me, and I forget the name of the island now, but he told me, he said to me, "Oh, that's such and such an island. I know that dog. I see it all the time on the dock."
Okay.
So there's a dog just made a boo-boo and fell in, got caught in the current.
That current is unforgiving on the St. Lawrence.
Yeah.
That is a good
I don't know whether anybody here has ever felt the tug of current pulling you.
It's a wild current.
It's horrible. Yeah. We did a thing with a group of firemen where I was tethered, and I got to feel some current that was like 5 miles an hour.
Yep.
And pretty wild. I'm a big piece to catch. It gets a good grip on me. It gets a good grip on me. But it was funny because 2 years ago when I fished out there with Gussie that day, he said to me, there was a couple of spots. He looked at me because he'd never fished in water like that. And he looked at me and he said to me, "Oh my God, what would happen if you fell in?" And there's some pictures of Gussie and I together that day, and I have a life jacket on. And I wore it all day.
Right.
And I know what it can do. If I go in, there's a good chance I ain't coming back up. I'm not a spring chicken, but I know a lot of 20-year-old, 30-year-old people you see on the news that didn't make a difference. They didn't have a life jacket and they're gone. Like there's a reason we have them.
Yeah.
No offense, but yeah, you've got largemouths like that down there. So
Jim,
I haven't found the largemouth, but I've maybe only ever gone out in the boat for largemouth twice.
Yeah.
And we found some. We waited until all the mats were going into the weeds, the reeds, I should say, not weeds, reeds. And they would hang out under the mats.
Yeah.
So you
I can
get
show
all
you
that.
places there. I can show you places there that you could fish all day.
Yeah.
Like you literally bring 2 flipping rods with 50-pound braid. One with 50, one with 65.
Now though, you're gonna see 7 or 8 other boats in those spots.
Yeah.
That's what I find. And we're all pitching in the same areas, right? So
hey, Mark, we're going to have to wrap it up with Jim because Lawrence is backstage. Jim, we got to all get together around the fire and then just talk about bass fishing one time.
You never know, buddy. We can do that anytime you want. I don't want to be late there. Lawrence will be complaining. He'll be phoning Scotty. Scotty, you weren't here and Big Jim was 5 minutes over. I'm just kidding, Lawrence. I love you, buddy.
I can't wait to get out in the boat with you, Jim.
We'll do it.
Yep, let's do it.
Okay, guys, everybody out there, be safe. Hey, we're almost there.
We're almost there. Stay safe. Jim. Okay.
Awesome, guys. Have a good night. I'm going to catch a bass.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Be good, kiddies.
All right, Mark, that brings us to our next guest. Man, I got to go bass fishing with Jim. It would just be.
Oh man, I'm looking forward to this.
There's your 4-point largemouth right there. I know you have smallmouth covered with Erica because she's the smallmouth queen.
She's the smallmouth queen. Yep.
Yeah, but if you need a 4-pointer, I think Jim's the man to call for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll see. Maybe my largies will go back to their summer spots and kick those smallies out. But like Jim said, those smallies are really aggressive, so I might have to find new spots.
Okay,
I'm
now
I'm okay with that.
finding new spots is always a good thing for sure.
That's fun. That's always fun. Yeah.
So before we go to Lawrence, let us hear from one of our key sponsors one more time. My gosh, whenever I see those commercials, it just wants me to spend money because those reels are so amazing. How you doing, Lawrence?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us one more time.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure.
How are you, Lawrence?
I'm doing well, Mark.
Amazing. Now, Lawrence, we have you for about 25 minutes before we call on Jason Barnucz. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about, because it came up at the beginning of the CFN Fish Off, is how we're going to handle submissions of salmon from the West Coast. So for those people that aren't familiar with the situation regarding salmon on the West Coast, can you give us a little bit of background and then an update in regards to those salmon?
Well, there's some places have opened up in the south of the British Columbia coastline for a retention of one fish. So you can keep a wild fish or a hatchery fish. They really don't know how to mark them differently right now. 90% of the hatchery fish that go into the system coming out of Canadian hatcheries on the West Coast are not identifiable as hatchery fish. So you have no way of determining if they're hatchery or wild. So they don't distinguish right now, but you're allowed to keep one in a small number of zones. Otherwise, it's catch and release, and that's problematic. So there's not a whole lot of there's some good fishing opportunities, and there's a bunch that's been canceled for 3 years in a row now. So it's a challenge. You move further north on the island, there's more opportunities. You move further north on the coast, there's more opportunities. And hopefully that'll all turn around at some point soon. There's a lot of people, a lot of money has been promised, $647 million. We talked about it last week on salmon rehabilitation and restoration. And more recently, there was a bill brought, a private member's bill, which means not a bill from a liberal member, but a bill from a conservative member was brought to the House of Commons in Ottawa. And it said, amongst other things, we have to make more opportunities available to the public fishery, the recreational guys, the anglers, because they've gone 3 years with missing a lot of opportunities. So they're saying, look, a lot of hatchery fish are going into the system. Let's mark them all, and let's have fishery set up so you can keep these marked fish. So that's really what you guys want to do. You want to go after those marked fish. If people are bringing in pictures of wild fish, maybe you say, well, you know what? Those wild fish should have just gone straight back into the system, and you shouldn't have taken time to take pictures of them and so forth. Should have just put them right back into the water, like a fish that you weren't allowed to keep. Because I did talk to a conservation officer about that, and he said if you catch a fish out of season, you can take pictures of it, reeling it in. You can take pictures of it, unhooking it. And you can have pictures of yourself releasing it, but you can't have pictures of yourself posing with it or measuring it. Then you can only do that if the fish is in season. If the fish is out of season, you can't do that. But with all these slot limits now, that's gotten a little more blurry, right? Because if a fish is too big, you're not allowed to keep it. Are you still allowed to measure it and report it as a catch fish? I don't know. Have you guys got some feedback from the COs on that?
Yeah, we've been talking to Muskies Canada actually, because let's say the limit is 44.
Yeah.
Should I be measuring a fish that's clearly under 44, like let's say in the low 30s? Probably not. But if I'm close to 44, then how do I even know if it's below or above that threshold? So a measurement is warranted, but the debate is what is warranted. And I could be an angler that catches muskie all the time, and I can visually see it within a couple inches. But a brand new angler might catch a 36 and think it's a 44 because they haven't caught muskies. They don't have that experience. So there is that, there is, like you said, that gray area. At one point, is it warranted to start measuring?
I think there's so many catch and release tournaments going on now that are based on, biggest fish, but you have to catch them, photograph them while you're measuring them, and then release them right away. And where you have walleye slot limits, especially where you're only allowed to keep walleye within a certain slot, like between 16 and 19 inches, which is pretty common. And you have to let the smaller ones go and you have to let the bigger ones go. But you want to catch those bigger ones. You want to report them in for your tournament results. So you should be able to keep take a picture of yourself measuring that bigger fish and getting the appropriate pictures you need before you return that fish. You're not catching it out of season, but you're clearly not harvesting the fish either, right? So I think the conservation officers should make allowances for that type of catch, photograph, release type tournaments, which is what CFN's doing.
Ours does locally here.
Yeah.
Yeah, he allows us to take our pictures of, even if they're out of season. And he has explained that what he doesn't want to see is you overhandling the fish.
Yeah.
There's a line. Don't cross that line. But as far as social media goes, though, you're not going to be posting these fish and expecting not to hear about it. So
there's always that, eh? Yeah.
Well, there's almost no point in doing it anyways. Unless you're making some kind of a, some scrapbook. You're putting a scrapbook together on where fish are at certain times of year and et cetera, et cetera. But he's come into our Lunker Club meetings and he's explained that he's okay with that. Muskie, for example, when they're open, they here on the St. Lawrence, so they think they have to be over 54 inches.
Yeah, 54.
To be able to keep it or have it in your possession, right?
Well, to keep it, to harvest it, yeah.
To harvest it, right?
Yeah.
And there's always somebody out there that's going to say, well, if you're not able to harvest it, then you shouldn't be taking pictures of it either. It's catch and release only. So you got to release that fish right away. But you got to take it into the boat, let's say, to measure it and find out where does it measure up. Oh, it's 53. It's really close. And everybody's going to want to take a picture with it.
Yeah.
It's okay, right? That fish is going back in the water. It's being released. It's being released as quickly as you can possibly release it. So I don't see the harm in it personally.
I agree.
Some people do, but
it is in season. Like if you were catching a muskie,
right.
If you were catching muskie and posing with a muskie and they were out of season, no matter what length they are, then I think you're in trouble, right? Because then you could be accused of targeting that species out of season.
That's right.
Yeah.
But they had a catch and release season with bass. I think that's where this came up. And they didn't want you taking pictures with it.
No way.
No.
So that's interesting. But you're allowed to catch them. You're allowed to catch them. But you can't take a picture. That makes no sense. That makes no sense.
It was a little confusing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You weren't supposed to be taking that hero pick with those fish.
Yeah.
It was catch and release only. However, they stated that you could take a video, have somebody else take a video of you catching, maybe hold it up real quick and put it back in the water, kind of thing.
Yeah, unhooking and so on. Yeah.
That's right. You know, they stated it was purely catch and release. So that's where this whole muskie thing came up. Well, isn't it the same with muskie? You're allowed to target them. But anyway, it was, there's a lot of conversations about that. And I think it depends on who the officer is in what area.
I think they need to clarify that, because
I think so too.
There's some other issues that have been arising, with the promotion of catch, photograph, release. Before you had to bring your fish in, they had to be lively. They had to be, looking good to qualify to be weighed. They had to survive the weigh-in process. And if they didn't, you were penalized. So that meant if you were catching fish deep, right, bass or walleye, and they were suffering from barotrauma and you didn't fizz them, or you fizzed them incorrectly and you killed them, or the fish was suffering from barotrauma and died, you got a penalty. So you were if you weren't comfortable with fizzing, you weren't going to target those bass that were deep, because they might just die on you in your live well, and then you get a penalty. So you'd think twice about it. With catch, photograph, release, you can go down as deep as you want, pull them up, measure them, photograph them, and release them. And no one would ever know that you were catching these fish 50, 60, 70 feet down. Because if you pull them out of the water quick enough, they won't show the symptoms of barotrauma. But they'll die later.
Yes. And we don't know, because they might swim away fine, but who knows what happens after they swim away when we're long gone.
Yep. They get down maybe 10 feet, then they come back up and they go down again, and they only get down 10 feet. They just can't get down again. And at some point they come up upside down and a bird grabs them, So yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of fish, I think, a lot of anglers who are trying to get those bigger numbers, those bigger fish to report on their catch, photograph, release type tournaments, that are targeting fish at depths they shouldn't be targeting them at. And I think that's something we have to educate people about, is we don't talk enough about barotrauma. We don't talk enough about, where you should be fishing, where you shouldn't be fishing. And, but it's tempting when you see those fish down there, 60, 70 feet, that's a big school of walleye. You're thinking, wow, look at them all. And, but it's, you got to resist that temptation, because what are you getting from that? I mean, if you want to go catch a couple fish for dinner and you're keeping them, well, go for it. But if you're just going to catch them and release them and catch them and release them, what are you doing? Right? You're just murdering fish for what reason? And to me, there's you should be looking elsewhere, and you will find them elsewhere. You will find big fish cruising around in other waters, in shallow waters. It's just because you see a school of fish and they're deep doesn't mean they're all deep. There's going to be a mix, right? There's always some at different depths.
And that is why the salmon question with regards to BC salmon came up in the CFN Fish Off, whether we were going to allow the entry of BC salmon in certain areas. Anything else you want to comment about the West Coast salmon, Lawrence?
There was a lot of discussion about documents being released by DFO, and a lot of money being flowed, and a lot more interest in this marked selective fishery and the science behind that. It's an evolving story there, you guys. I mean, that whole West Coast salmon thing, it's a car wreck in slow motion in some ways, but there are people who are saying, hey, look, we need to do something and send in some emergency crews here before this is a big catastrophe. And it's being turned around, but it's going to take some time. It's going to take some discussion. It's going to take some research. It's going to take some investment. But I'm optimistic it'll get turned around. I'm hopeful.
Yeah. And would you say everyone is on the same page, or different people think different things in terms of charter captains and the ministry and whoever else is involved in that process?
If you read the Bluefish news that came out today, and then you can see it on bluefishcanada.ca, you'll find one of the podcasts that I reference in that editorial in the Bluefish News is with a DFO biologist who worked for the DFO for 38 years. Now he works as a consultant for the Pacific Salmon Foundation. And he told me about, in the 1970s when he started working with schools, and kids used to just torture salmon in the rivers. They would beat them with hockey sticks, right? And because there was just so many of them, and no one ever thought, you could ever put a dent into their population. They were disposable. They were numerous. They were just, nothing special. There was just so many of them. And it made me think about, what people must have been thinking when they went out in those trains and saw the fields of buffalo, right? And the plains and the millions of buffalo, and they just shot them out of the train windows just for fun. Or passenger pigeons, when people would just shoot passenger pigeons, and the flock of birds flying over could measure as long as 5 miles in some cases. It would darken the sky. There'd be so many passenger pigeons above you, and they would just shoot them. So, with these 4-aught and 6-aught and 2-aught shotguns, so they would just stand up on the ground and they wouldn't even hold them. They just put the butt on the ground, massive cannon shotguns, and blast holes into these flocks and bring them down, and pigeon pie, right? And people just thought the numbers, it would never end. It would never end. There would never be a shortage. And it wasn't that long ago, people viewed salmon the same way on the West Coast. And there's been a lot of effort to turn that around, obviously, but it's been a huge adjustment in values. Part of that came from, converting salmon into money through canneries or guiding, and now moderate livelihoods. So there's, we still see fish as, bling, bling money, coins, dollars. But we need to see them as more than that, as more than just opportunities to trade them for money or make money from them. We need to see them as a resource, as a vital component of the ecosystem. And that's still a work in progress, I think. That still hasn't necessarily happened on all fronts. But there was a beautiful article written in the Globe and Mail on June 15th by Mark Hume, Globe and Mail, June 15th. And it's all about catch and release fishing. And he just did a beautiful, beautiful job explaining catch and release fishing, its origins. 3,000 years ago, people were fishing with fishing rods, right? 3,000 years ago. And right up to today. And he talked about the science about do fish feel pain and mortality rates around catch and release fishing. Highly, highly recommend that. Now, you'll see a link to that article in the Bluefish News with a bunch of other great articles about fish and fishing. So check it out. Read that Mark Hume article about catch and release fishing. I think every angler, it should be mandatory reading, because you need to know that if you're going to practice catch and release, this will make you feel a lot better about it. And you'll understand it. There's a lot of history there. Good history.
Thanks, Lawrence. I know one of the topics that Jason wants to talk about when he comes on is the handling practices of the catch and release fish in the CFN fish off. But before we transition to Jason and talking about the fish off, I know you wanted to share some feel the bite tips before we end off in about 7-8 minutes or so.
Sure.
Any feel the bite tips for us?
Well, we were talking about current, right? And the St. Lawrence River. And, usually there's 2 guys on that boat, and, it's not easy to fish that river and drift that river and keep your lines vertical, because you have your current break, which happens about 10 feet above the bottom. So the bottom, it will grab the current and it'll hold it back. But at some point, it can't. And it happens at about 10 feet off the bottom, the current will break. So the water from within 10 feet of the bottom is slow. And then above that, it's full speed. So if you're flowing with the boat, if you're going full speed with the boat with the current, you're flowing faster than the current at the bottom, near the bottom of the river. So if you've got your bait down at the bottom, you're dragging a tube or drop shot, and your boat is drifting faster above it, your line is going to be way, way, way behind you, right? You know, your boat's just picking up speed and your line's being left behind. So you have to point your boat upstream. You have to keep your trolling motor pointed upstream, and you drift backwards. And you just apply enough power on your trolling motor to slow yourself so you're drifting at the same speed as the water is moving at the just above the bottom of the river. And it's not an easy thing to do. You're talking about adjustments of 1/10 of a mile an hour with your trolling motor, and it's a very tricky thing. Now, here's the other thing that's tricky: is you and your partner need to be using pretty much identical gear, because if one person has a 3/4 ounce weight, the other one has a 1/2 ounce, you'll be adjusting your speed. The person who's controlling that trolling motor will be adjusting their speed to suit the weight of their drop shot or their tube. And if you're not using that same weight, you'll either be dragging too hard or you'll never be touching bottom. So you need to be communicating with your partner. What size weight are you using? What's the thickness of your line? And that all has to line up, because if you're using a really thick monofilament and they're using a really thin braid, you know, there's water resistance on that line, and that's going to make a big difference on whether you can maintain that vertical presentation or not. So you really need to plan ahead and talk to your partner. Okay, what's your drop shot rig? What's your tube rig? What kind of line are you using? What weights are you using? And match all that up. Otherwise, one person's going to have a really positive day on the water, and the other person's going to have a really unsatisfactory day on the water. That goes with bottom bouncing, with walleye fishing as well. You know, you've got to be using similar bottom bouncers, similar weight bottom bouncers. You know, if one person is bottom bouncing a spinner rig and you're doing it 1.8 miles an hour, and someone else is trying to use a slow death hook, it's not going to work, because slow death does not work at near 2 miles an hour. It just doesn't work. So, you know, a slow death is made for under a mile an hour. So you really have to keep it together. This is, you know, when you're drifting or trolling and you're trying to maintain bottom contact and have that feel, it's really important that you guys you coordinate together with your teammate.
That's a great tip. I know whenever I'm the one responsible for positioning the boat, I end up catching less fish than everyone else on the boat, because I'm too busy trying to position everyone else in the right spot, and I never get my line in the water.
I feel for you, man. And people come on my boat and they take over control of my boat, because I don't drive my big boat, obviously, but they're always so busy driving my boat and moving the trolling motor and look at the fish finder, and I'm just catching fish, and I really feel like a pampered bastard for doing it. But it's my boat, so tough luck.
And sometimes it's the opposite. When it's just my girlfriend and I, she's like, "Why do you always position the boat so you're in the good spot?" I forget that she's in a totally different spot than I am.
Oh yeah, like, you know what they call that in when you have these bass tournaments, like the Bassmaster, the BASS, where you have a co-angler and an angler, and the co-angler's on the back, and then halfway through the day you switch. So the co-angler gets to run the trolling motor, and the angler goes to the back of the boat. But you're not doing a shared weight. You're each collecting your own fish. The angler would collect 5 fish for the day, and the co-angler usually 3. And if you block that person at the back of the boat by positioning the boat in a certain way that they can't flip in, right? You're always coming into the cover nose first, and they're at the back of the boat, and they can't, and you're not allowed to flip past the person. You can't cast past the person at the front of the boat. So you're blocked. The person driving the boat can get disqualified. Oh yeah, it's that serious, man. It's that serious. People take this shit serious, boy.
There are some advantages with being in the front and the back, and having the trolling motor controls in your hand or not in your hand. There's definitely advantages to both scenarios.
Oh yeah. Like I tell you, if I have someone on the front of the boat and we're cruising down the shoreline, and they're fan casting 180 off the front of the boat looking for pike, everything from the shore to the front of the boat and out to the side of the boat, and they're leaving me nothing to go. They've covered all the territory as we're cruising along there. I'm at the back. I'll just tell him. I said, look, pick a side. You pick a side, and then that's it. You want the left side of the boat? You get the left side. You want the right side? You get the right side. But you don't get the whole damn thing. It's not your boat. I'm back here. Hello.
Yeah. Otherwise, you just get the sloppy seconds.
Oh yeah. And and they're catching fish after fish, and you're just going, I hate you. You really got to communicate this stuff. Otherwise, bad feelings can make for a bad day.
Yeah. I know I went out with one buddy, and his philosophy is everything we catch today is a team fish. So it could be you, could be me, but everything we catch is our fish and not my fish or your fish.
Yeah, that's fine to say, but words are cheap, right? I was flipping with this guy's bass boat when he's cruising down the shore, and he's just dissecting the pads as he's moving along, and I'm behind him trying to flip into stuff. And I'm not a great flipper to begin with, and I pull out a 4-pounder, and he looks at me and goes, "Where did you catch that?" Like he was insulted that I caught a fish in territory that he had already covered.
Oh man, we could talk all day. Sure. Those are fun stories, Lawrence.
Yeah.
Mark Beehler is here. Any last questions for Lawrence before we bring on our good friend Jason? Mark.
No, but I do love your train of thought, Lawrence. I have since the first time I heard you speak, and I love all the things that you do with Bluefish Radio. Keep it up, man.
Oh, thanks, buddy. I appreciate the vote of confidence there, man. That means a lot coming from someone like you. Thanks, buddy.
Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to do it, and I love that you're headstrong about it, and you're full throttle. Keep it up. I love it.
All right, cool. Will do.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Lawrence, and we'll talk. And our crew will be on Bluefish once the CFN fish off is done, and we can recap all the amazing things that happened during our 4-week tournament.
Make some notes. We'll do a podcast, and then we'll put it in there on the July 5th edition of the Bluefish News with a podcast on Bluefish Radio and some pics and stuff. Yeah, that would be great, man. Looking forward to doing that with you guys.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll see you next Monday.
Right on.
See you, Lawrence.
Bye.
All right, Mark. We got one more guess, but man, when you just hear Lawrence, it's just like oozing information, and you just get drawn in all the time.
Big time. It's amazing how much information that man is able to either both retain and articulate out to us. He's very articulated. It's incredible.
Whether you're a veteran angler or a beginner angler, the way he articulates it, like you said, makes it easy for everyone to understand.
Yep.
All right. Another person who has great articulation and a huge amount of knowledge is our next guest, Mr. Jason Barnucz. But before we get to Jason, here's a word from his sponsor.
The fear of failure is failure itself. The world of science rewards the ones who are willing to try and fail. Because without the courage to embrace failure, ideas remain ideas. But with that courage to fail and to learn, ideas can change the world.
That is cool.
Hey guys.
There he is.
Cool. Hey Jason, how you did tonight?
I'm doing good. Trying to recover from my weekend or week of fishing, I guess. I think tonight's the only night off I'm not fishing for. Yeah. In the last 2 weeks, I've had 2 days where I haven't fished. No, that's wrong. 3 days I haven't fished. 2 CFN lives, and Friday night I had a lot of fishing tackle to prep for the weekend. So we didn't fish, but we prepared for the weekend. So it was good. It's been a good run. Still got 2 weeks to go. I'm tired.
How was the weekend? Because preparing and doing all this other stuff, I don't get to see every single entry. How did your team do this weekend?
You know what? We down here, I got a small tin boat. Trevor's got his kayak now. The winds have been really tough. And so I love living close to Long Point Bay and Lake Erie, but sometimes the wind, you're at the mercy of the wind. And, you know, I'm not a fair weather angler per se, but I'm not going to go sit out in a stiff wind all day. So Trevor and I decided, like, let's try and go for a couple upgrades and maybe fish for an oddball species that we haven't got yet. And so we went out, targeted brook trout, and like, listen, just for everyone out there, like living in southwestern Ontario is great brook trout fishing, but typically in the spring. Once you get those summer temperatures and the rivers get really low, those bigger brookies are hard to find. I don't want to tell you how many 7.5-inch brook trout we caught on Saturday morning. It was unbelievable. Like, you know, we're sitting there, like, we're literally sitting inside of a culvert. Okay, like one of the spots, we're in a culvert. And Trevor's, I'm 6'3", Trevor's about 5'6", 5'5" right now. So he's a little shorter. So he's in the culvert, and we get one on. He reels it out, and I'm standing, so my chest is at the top of the stone culvert. Does that make sense? So I got the measuring board up there. So he catches one, reels it up. I grab it on the board. 7.5. Put it back. And we went through that 6 times at this one culvert. 6, like, they were beautiful brook trout. Like, we admired every single one, but we just couldn't get one. And one we thought was going to go 8. It got caught on someone's line. So I went into the culvert with the net, like head first in this culvert, on my knees, trying to grab this brook trout. And it was like 7, just over 7.5. I'm like, oh, come on. So what we did was, now we went out early in the morning. We left here at 5, started fishing at 6:30. Got a 9-inch creek chub at 6:30, which was a good start to the day. Got a bunch of green sunfish that were short, like great multi-species day. And then we went brook trout fishing, hit at least a dozen culverts that I know of brook trout. Caught brook trout probably in half of them, but they were too short. Now we're getting into noon. And so I said, well, Trevor, let's just, brook trout aren't happening for us today. Let's just shift gears. So we went to a river where I know there's good red horse. And I thought, you know, we still are missing a silver red horse. We have 4 other species. We have a 3-point greater and a 3-point golden so far. They might get beat, but that's fine. Let's go for an upgrade, and maybe we'll catch something else. Well, I'm going to tell you, Trevor sat on a bridge trying to catch a northern hogsucker that easily would have been about 10 inches long. He tried to catch that hogsucker, and literally we would park the bait, like park it, like it would drift in perfectly, land. It's a flat rock, so the hogsucker's here, and Trevor would position that bait. We tried like corn, we tried worms, we tried tiny worms, like everything, and all the hogsucker had to do was just move over and eat it. Like, it was resting right beside his head. Trevor's like, Dad, what do I do? I go, don't move. So after like 10 minutes, I go, don't move. After a while, like, let's just leave. But we saw red horses in this pool, and this pool was like, I've never seen anything like it. There was probably 40 red horse in this pool, but they were all suspended like steelhead, like, and anything that drifted past them. If you've ever been to a spot on Wilmot or on Duffin's Creek and you see those steelhead in that low clear water, and they see your tiny bait coming and they just kind of do this.
Yeah.
And that's all those red horse were doing. I'm like, are you kidding me? I've never seen red horse so finicky in my life. So
are they in the middle of spawning though, or
no? They're all done. I think we're just at summertime low water, and with the hot water and the warm temperatures, I think they're a little bit skittish.
Because I've had them do that too when they were in groups, and I couldn't get them to bite. But then you go back 2 or 3 days later, and they're gone. So I thought maybe they just came in to just spawn.
Yeah, and I think where we are is they might have been post spawn, but see, shortheads. It's really neat about red horses. Red horses don't interbreed, and it's amazing because they're so similar.
Yeah.
But a buddy of mine, actually, part of his PhD thesis was studying red horses. This is 20 years ago, and he figured out that they all spawn at different times. Like, typically, the white suckers will spawn first. They're not red horse, but white suckers will spawn first in the spring. Then the shortheads will come in. Then the silvers. Then the goldens, then the graders, then the rivers. And literally that's how they kind of, and this all happens over a span of 2 months where they each have like different temperature cues. And so that's why there's like this, you know, escalator of red horse coming in. And it's like, because someone will say, I can't catch a grader. like this is in the spring, and I'm like, well, they're not there yet. I'm like, what are you catching? I'm getting silvers. I'm like, you got to wait a couple more weeks. Like they come in droves. You typically won't catch. You might catch 2 species at one spot, but I've never been able to catch like 4 red horse species at one spot. You know, they just kind of don't gather. And a lot of us that fish for them, they're way easier to catch in the spring, kind of when they're spawning. I think that they aggregate more, they're gathered up more. In the summertime, they spread out.
Yeah.
They act like trout, right? They feed, they kind of casually swim around, and they're a little more selective of baits, I find, this time of year. So, but we got a bunch of rain in southwestern Ontario, and I'm hoping, Mark, like you said, sometimes you go back a different day, it's a different scenario, right?
Yeah.
So we got some flow now. Maybe it'll get them feeding more. So, because I need a silver red horse, which is funny because that's usually the one I catch the most often. I'm not gonna lie, like that's the one I can't catch right now. We caught a 25-inch grater on the first day of the fish off, our first day out, and I'm like, that's amazing. And then I can't catch a silver red horse. So,
I remember in the fish off, I spent I think it was close to 2 full days. And when I say 2 full days, the first day I think it was 16 hours.
Wow.
And the second day was 12 hours. And I was looking for a drum. And normally I wouldn't have a problem getting one.
yeah.
And I could see them down there. They just didn't want to bite. And then I finally get one to bite. Doesn't it get off on me?
Yeah.
I was just about ready to pull my hair out.
Well,
I almost gave up, and then I went back out again, and or I threw it back out again, and I did end up getting one, and it was nowhere near the size that we would normally get.
Yeah.
But we were happy just to get one. Oh, that was a long time dedicated to getting one species.
It's crazy. So that's what happened on Saturday. We spent all day.
Yeah.
And now we ended up with 6 points for a day of fishing because of the way things transpired, which ended up being a great day. But up until 2 o'clock, I was like, today kind of sucks. like nothing's really working for us. We started doing a traditional, like not a true micro fishing technique, but we like in the spring with red horse, I can use I got so much fishing tackle. Like if I could do like an aerial shot of my desk right now, you guys would laugh. But like, you know, typically I'm using like a 1/0 or a size 1 circle hook. Like I use that a ton for red horse in the spring. I find the hookups are great, but a size 1 hook right now, it's just too big. They're shying away from it. So a lot of our fish on the weekend were caught using a size 6 or a size 8 hook, you know, with like a fingernail piece of worm on the end, and try to avoid using split shot, but we would use split shot if we had to. But just like I'm getting back to like fishing these things, like I'm fishing for like little stream brook trout, and I'm trying to catch red horse now. But some of these spots, like guys, we caught at one spot we went to, we caught striped shiners, common shiners, rock bass, a couple out of season smallmouth, golden red horse. In one spot. We stayed at one spot for 2.5 hours, but I have to let everybody in on my big catch of the weekend, which for some people are like, yeah, that's not very big. But I know that there's a species in Ontario called a river chub, and there's 3 or 4 water bodies where they're found. And the cousin hornyhead chub is very similar, and they can get pretty big. Mike, you know what I'm talking about. Like these things can get up to be 8, 9, 10 inches long. Yeah. And for a chub, a member of the same family as creek chub, like they get pretty big, but a 9-inch one is big, right? Yeah,
big.
So we went to this one spot and we're sifting through all these different species, and we caught a couple river chub that were like 7 inches, 7.25. And just as I'm about to leave, I just fire this cast back to this back of this pool and on my little micro rig, and I'm using like how I'm fishing these big rivers with small baits is to make these long casts. I'm using like 5 and 6 pound braid to cast. I'm using like a 12-inch leader of like 4 and 6 pound test, and then I'm using braid so I have enough what I want to say, like castability, so I can fire that little bait as far as I can. And I got a 9.375 river chub.
Wow,
close to the Ontario record. So
that is a big one.
So we went from like 0 to hero. Trevor and I are high-fiving each other. I'm in the river. My video says it all, man. I was exhausted on that fish. And I'm like, that saved our day. Because so our goal in this whole fish off being the first year, father-son team, we can't drive separately. We fish together all the time. Like we are together all the time, which is great. It's been a very enjoyable experience.
That's amazing.
I see the value in fishing separate. I do see that value. But, and I might do a little bit of separate fishing because I have to travel a bit in the next week or two. But I've been trying to do every day with Trevor. And in the end, catching that fish was just awesome. So I figured, well, someone might catch a bigger river chub. There's been some surprising catches in the fish off, which is exciting. But I'm happy for that 4 points. It looks like my creek chub is at 2 points. I don't think it's going to hold. I know there's bigger creek chub out there. I know that. So that's a 1 point fish in my head. So we're floating around that. I think at one point, like that fish off leaderboard is really, I try not to check it too much, guys, because one hour I'm in 4th place. And then like 2 days later, I'm in 6th. And then I'm back up to 5th, down to 7th. Like I'm like, said to Trevor, as long as we stay in the top 10, that was our goal for the year, top 10. If we can stay top 10, I'm happy. If it's top 5, I'm even happier. But we're trying to stay in that top 10. And we still have lots of work to do. Like bass season hasn't opened here yet. And we aren't traveling too far. Like I'm driving, an hour, but most of our fish are within an hour of the house. So I've been trying to keep it to that. But yeah, it was a great weekend, but now we gotta shake it up a little bit. We got bass openers going to get us back out in the lake. I haven't caught a bowfin yet. Haven't caught a smallmouth. Haven't caught a largemouth.
Oh,
I don't even have a brown bullhead yet, for crying out loud. Like I have some really common species that I've been fishing a lot of streams and rivers, and I need to get out on the lake and the marshes and start exploring some other species. So we'll see what happens.
Before I ask you next topic question, I know I could totally relate. I know in season 1 when I was competing against Mark, it was 7-inch after 7-inch after 7-inch creek chub. It was like sifting through all of them. And then what actually happened was I gave up. Yeah. These two guys came walking along the bank, non-fishermen. And they're like, hey, you're actually catching fish here? I've never seen anyone catch fish here. I go, yeah, hold on. Let me show you. Because it'll literally take 10 seconds to catch one. So I didn't bother segmenting a worm. I just put a whole worm on, chuck it in. I go, count to 10 and I'll catch one. And then I caught one, and it was 8 1/4 inch creek chub. And it was the only time I put a full worm on. And it was like, people asked me, out of all the species you caught in season 1, which was the most rewarding? And it was the creek chub. And it was just that good joy of, wow, I actually got one.
Well, and it's one of those species that you're like, I'll catch an 8-inch creek chub. No problem. If I got creeks around here. If I go trout fishing in the spring, I can't keep them off my line trying to catch a brown trout. I keep catching these 8 and 9-inch creek chub, but I ain't gonna catch one now because they know I'm coming for them. Like there's this whole karma with the fish off that's like bad karma some days. But the thing about it is when we were out there fishing, so we caught a nice creek chub in the morning, like literally in the first 15 minutes, and then we're driving around catching all these brook trout, and we spent literally 4 hours fishing for brook trout at a dozen different culverts. And Mike, in the end, I looked at Trevor and I'm like, all right, because he's played a lot of rep ball in his life. I said, okay, buddy, you know what? The game's not over. We had a good first inning, and we went through 3 or 4 bad innings here. We need a home run. We're going to get one. And then we went to that red horse spot, and they were in hog suckers. I'm like, man, this ball game is just my ball game analogy is really getting bad. And then we hit a home run with the river chub, and that was. But then our day, we tried for a silver red horse on the way home at another spot, and it didn't work out. So it's the ups and downs, man. But then get this: yesterday, the kids want to go catch a carp. I said, okay, for Father's Day. So I said, all right. So Trevor's been YouTube and all these, and I'm not a carp angler. I don't carp fish. I'm not going to call myself a carp angler at all. I'm pretty new to it. Been doing some reading on it over the last. In fact, I got a book on it back here that's fantastic, but I don't do it. So literally yesterday morning, went on YouTube, looked up hair rigs. I know what a hair rig is, but how I could tie my own hair rig. I pulled out some 20-pound braid, tied a few hair rigs, put it in my little leader wallet, made myself up a needle with a bent out hook, some toothpicks, went out to the local pond, threw it out there. 20 minutes, we had a carp. I'm like, that's awesome.
Yep.
So
Rewarding.
we're not going to catch a 35-inch carp to challenge. I know that, maybe, but I doubt it. So I'm happy for the point. And Stephanie called fish on. Trevor fought the fish. Heather took the video. I just had to hold the fish. I just had to hold it. That's it. I had the easy part of the whole day. So it was great. Great Father's Day for a carp. On
You know
Father's
what?
Day,
You know what did it for me during my fish off or our fish off? It was the rock bass. That's the one that I kept catching, and it was 7.5, 7.75. I had one that was just shy, and then we were back to 7-inch. That went on forever and ever and ever.
So
And
rewarding, no way.
And I'm thinking back now, and I'm not even sure if maybe we did submit one, because I gave up that day. I did not get my fish, and I might have got one later on, but it was a random. I think we just randomly came across it, and it was over 8 inches. But that particular day, I didn't get my rock bass, and I spent hours trying to get it. I was just blown away. I'm like, there's got to be an 8-inch rock bass in here.
But that's what makes
and that's all I wanted. I just wanted a point, you know.
Yeah, that's
another species, another point.
Yeah,
like, I didn't care if it was the biggest.
We're not trying to like break people's, like, you know, get a 3 or 4 point fish. I'm happy for, like, if I can get 10 more species and get 10 more points, I'm up over 40 points. I'm happy with that. Like, I'm not going for a 3 or 4 point fish. If I trip over one on the way, I'm thrilled.
Right.
But the whole approach we've had is catch as many species that are 8 inches and longer. And we've tripped into a couple of 3 and 4 point fish, which I think has helped us a ton. But our goal has been, 25 species to get 25 points. And then a few of those should be 2s and 3s and 4s if you're catching that many. That's kind of our thought on it. And it's been paying off. But man, like there's some, I can't get over, like, I've always kind of followed the fish off and never participated. And I'm just following along some of the teams. It's crazy.
Incredible, right?
It's amazing. I was talking with somebody at the Royal Ontario Museum today about a project at work, because I work with them sometimes. And she was asking how the summer was going. And I told her about this contest. And she's like, "Oh, Jason, your knowledge of species in Ontario, you should be doing incredible." And I go, I said to Mary, there's a guy who drove from Ontario to Quebec to catch chain pickerel. Drove to Quebec. Like, I said, that's amazing. Like, caught a what did drag pullers catch? Was it an Arctic char? Like, I know they stock him in some lakes in Quebec. I said, that's what it takes to win it. I'm not there. I'm not at that level. I'm like double A. I'm not triple A yet. Like some of the work that goes into this, and kudos to them. I think it's cool, really cool that anglers are doing that. And I see the full strategy in it. And I see the strategy of having anglers in different corners of the province, or even the country, if you want to do it that
country,
right? For sure.
Well, look at what Kenneth and Michael did there. You watched it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That blew me away. I was beside myself when I watched that first episode and they hit the West Coast. I thought, oh, wow, you sneaky buggers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then I was like, wow, this ramped up this to a whole new level.
Yeah. Because, Mark, you're sitting there at home and you're playing it like, this is what I'm doing. Okay. I'm looking at my house and I live where there's a lot of fish, a lot of different species. And I'm like, all right, I can drive a half hour here and get this, 40 minutes here. I can drive 5 minutes and get this. And then you look at people driving across the country. And I'm like, holy.
Yeah. I know.
There needs to be like an A and B division. I'm just kidding. Like
we fished like you. We fished an hour.
Yeah.
At the most, I think we traveled an hour.
Yeah.
If that.
But it's amazing though, Mark, how that hour turns into 4, because you're just like
Yeah, you zig and zag.
Like, I got to fish this culvert. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to double back and fish this one. So I'm in the same like postal code almost, but I'm
Right.
going all over the place, right?
Yeah. Jason, I know you wanted to talk about fish handling during the fish off. So any comments or tips for those people that are currently in it?
Well, I think the big thing is I've been really happy with the fish handling this year, and I know Mike, you and Scotty have talked about it on Turning Tuesday each week, and it's been great. I still see a few anglers though, like that could really use a landing net. And I joke, you can't have enough nets at home. Like I have little nets and I have like huge musky size nets, right? I have nets for everything, and I really enjoy having a net, even when we're like, doesn't matter what we're fishing for. It could be a pumpkin seed. It could be a brown trout. It could be a red horse. Hold that fish in the net while you're getting everything ready. Like the good fish off, the veteran fish offers have it down to a science. Like they got the board out. They know where they're going to do the video. Like it's all rehearsed. And then for the new ones, myself included, the first couple days, I'm like, oh crap, where's my forceps? Where's this? Where's that? And I'm usually more organized. But you're so focused on the video and getting everything done properly. I think having a net, and even having a net, not just to hold the fish in the water, but if you can, put the net on the ground and measure your fish. If you can, even if you're just using a tape measure, measure it inside the net. Because if your net's wet, it's better than being in the sand or in the dirt and things like that. So, a cheap net at Crappy Tire, $20. What are those Lucky Strike little trout nets? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
those things are great.
Those are great. Yeah,
for like 3/4 of the fish off species you're going to catch. Those things are fantastic, right? So, I think everyone should have one of those nets with them and keep the net wet. In fact, my ritual is when I get to the spot, I like to soak my net in the water before I go fishing. I like to kind of, like a quarterback walks on the pitch and throw grass in the fingers and has that smell. I'm like, got to get the net wet, because the fish don't want to come in the boat with your net's not wet. So that's one of my superstitions. I got to get my net wet before I start fishing.
That is
it working out for you though?
It doesn't work every day, but I'm so stuck to it that I'll stick with it. With it. So yeah. But it's the fish handling has been really good. It's been hot with the hot weather. It's hard on the fish. It really is. It's hard on us too. But definitely good to see people doing so well with the fish measurements and being organized. And I think for even myself, I'm watching how people are doing their videos, and it got me thinking about how to do mine more efficiently, right? To get that fish back even quicker. So
yeah, the key is, if you remember, because I know people are super excited fishing, but even before you cast that line, just have your measuring board ready, know the surface that you're going to use when you do catch a fish, and just having that all set up so that when video time happens, that decision-making process has already been done, which means the fish can go back into the water. And then the next thing is we've posted a new chart that has the top 3 fish in every species. Yeah. So before you even go out, find out what that third point fish is, because if you don't need to measure it, just get it back into the water. And a lot of times you don't need to measure it because you're not breaking that top 3.
Well, so that's what we did. So Saturday morning we got up at 4:30, and at 4:40 we were down here in my dungeon going over the top 3 for the species we were after on Saturday. Like this, I predicted what species we were after, and I used the notes app on my iPhone, and I'm like, okay, we're going after creek chub. In the bracket, I had what the number 3 creek chub was. Yeah. So what I said is, if I catch one bigger, and I told a lot of people this, if you think you're close to the length, because there could be an upgrade while you're out fishing, someone could upgrade you. Yep. But if anything over 9 inches, I'm measuring it just to make sure, right? But if you know that 9 inches is the cutoff and it's an 8-inch fish, let it go. That's one good thing about the net too, Mike. I wanted to mention, when you go to check your video before you let your fish go, put the fish in the net, have your partner hold the net in the water to keep that fish healthy, and check your video. We haven't made the mistake yet, but I'm so scared of messing up the video, right? Or you mess up the video where you've had a few blooper takes. You're like, okay, you know what, Mr. Fish, you can have a rest while Jay collects himself, because I clearly can't get the code right. So some of the videos we've put in that look really smooth, that was like the third and fourth take of the video.
I know what you're talking about, because in the first fish off, I had a 4-point bass.
Yeah.
My friend thought he pressed record.
Oh,
But the whole time it wasn't recording, and we let the fish go. So yeah, if you could leave it in the net, just double check, was that recorded?
yeah.
And then confirmed. Okay, let's let it go. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
The same thing happened yesterday. I'm going to give my wife Heather lots of credit. She took the video of Trevor with the carp, and I stood off to the side, and she filmed it, and then she had me check the video to make sure that it was okay. We held the carp in the net, and then we let it go. So because she was worried that she wanted to get the video right, because sometimes even the lighting, like, you know, a great tip last week, right, of going slowly over the fish, but I still like to take a picture of my fish. You've seen in my entries, I like to get a whole picture of the fish. And usually when you're on my iPhone, right, you can, I guess, I don't know, I use Samsung, but you can do a picture while you're filming. So I'll snap a picture while I'm filming it, just so I can go in later and see the size of that fish. Like, I know a lot of the judges do a great job, and they look at the video, and I do the same thing. I'll screenshot the video, and then you'll zoom in to see what the fish is, right? Yeah. But I still like taking that picture of the length of that fish, just to add it in there and keep it organized. That's the thing too about the fish off, is being organized. Like I've got 19 species. I have 19 folders on my desktop, and each species entry is in different folders. Like, because I kept losing track. Do I have 15? Do I have 16? What is my upgrade for this? Like, so once you get up to like 12 species, I don't have enough brain capacity. I need to like have it listed somewhere for me to keep track, right? So
yeah, that is a great little organizational tool there. Hey,
I'm trying.
Jason, before we go, I know bass season is starting to open up in almost all areas, but this year it seems like more people are confused. Is it open? Is it not open? Any comments with regards to bass season?
Yeah, it's been a tough year for bass anglers trying to sort through the regulation changes. So typically bass season, let's go back 10 years ago. Bass season opened the 4th Saturday in June for all of Southern Ontario. Super easy to manage. And then Natural Resources in Ontario, they got some great data that said, no, we could open earlier in some places. So zone 17, 18, and 20 opened the 3rd Saturday, and zone 15, 16, and 19, so that's all the southern zones, they opened the 4th Saturday. And that's fine. A little bit confusing, because what happens is, Mike, I see you catching bass you're up in Rice Lake on the weekend catching bass. And I'm living down near Long Point here, so Rice Lake's in zone 17, which opened on the weekend. I'm down here in zone 19, which is Lake Erie on Long Point. And I'm like, why can't I go bass fishing? So a lot of people go out bass fishing on the wrong weekends. And I wish we would streamline that regulation more. Like, and the other one is the zone 20 has the spring catch and release season, and then has this smallmouth extended season where it's delayed for 2 more weeks. So I don't think it's too confusing necessarily, but I think there's a learning curve that we need to educate anglers. Because I've seen a lot of posts of anglers like, oh, I was up at Lake Muskoka on the weekend and I caught some nice bass. And then the Facebook police start just berating the person with that closed season. And I can't, let's educate. I'm sure that that angler did not go to Lake Muskoka to poach bass. I'm sure of it. Now, should they have done that? No. Should they have posted the pictures on Facebook? No. But I think right now in Ontario, there's an education that we have to work with. And, that's something the CFN can work on in the next year or two, is educating not just the CFNers. I don't think the CFN has an issue with understanding regulations, but I think a lot of our followers who maybe aren't regular CFN followers, we need to educate them a little bit more. But I think it's going to help the smallmouth fishing in Lake Ontario, which is a cooler lake than Lake Erie. So those bass spawn a lot later. And the same could be said for Lake Simcoe. I'd like to see Lake Simcoe get a delayed opening, because I think that deep water lake, those bass are still typically on beds. Now, in saying that, I heard you guys talking with Jim and Mark was talking about how these bass are all pretty spawned out right now. Well, I was talking with Steve Cook from Carleton University last week, who does research on bass in the Rideau Lakes, like up around Lake Opinicon and Newborough Lake. And a lot of those bass are off their beds. Were off their beds before season opened on the weekend. So we had a perfect storm of weather, according to Steve, for some of those central and eastern Ontario lakes, where we had a kind of a normal spring, and then we got warm, but we didn't get too warm. And it was just kind of right for them to come in, spawn, because the warmer the water, the shorter the hatch period, the shorter the swim up period, and then the males can leave. And so we should have a good year class of largemouth and smallmouth on some of our inland lakes, especially if we don't get a cold winter. If we get a mild winter again, we should have a good recruitment this year. But we still got to do the right thing and don't be greedy and keep your 6 bass for the freezer, like Gord said. You know, I'll quote Gord Pizer: "Don't be greedy, let them go." So, anyways, but thanks again for tonight, Mike. Thanks for filling in for Scotty and Mark. What happened to Mark? But thanks, Mark, and I'll see you guys tomorrow night I'll be listening on Tourney Tuesday, getting my update.
You probably have some ballots in for one of our 2 draws, because we do have our perches draw, walleye, lager, perch. So who knows? We might pick your name out. And then we have our char salmon draw. So we got 2 big draws tomorrow. I
wanted to have, so we have a perch and a walleye and a brown trout. I wanted my brook trout ticket in, but it didn't happen. So I was hoping to have my brook trout ticket stamped, but that didn't happen. So I got to go work on that. Maybe tomorrow morning before work. I might get up at 4 a.m. and go for a drive before work tomorrow morning. We'll see. So
yeah. Well, thanks, Jason, for all the information, and thanks for great videos, great catches. It's good to see so many species across the country being caught, and I think that's one of my favorite things about it, other than seeing families go out and really have a fun time fishing.
Hey, Mike, my mom is a member of the CFN Fish Off group now because she wants to see all of her entries from her son and grandsons. So my mom, she's not an angler. She never has been, but she's always supported what I do. So I invited her. She's in the group now. She's hitting the old heart button on all of our posts in the Fish Off group now. So shout out. And by the way, today is last 2 things. Today is my mom's birthday. She turned 65 today. She's still working at Woodstock General, helping the nurses there. She should have been retired, but she's not. So shout out to Rose. She's 65 today. And shout out to Trevor and all the other 2021 graduates, because he graduates grade 8 tomorrow. So shout out to all the 2021 grads. They're all graduating this week, be it high school or grade school. And it's another COVID year, but shout out to all the graduates this year. Okay.
Thanks, Jason. Shout out to all the graduates. Happy birthday, Mama.
Yep.
We will see. We'll see all your catches online between now and next Monday.
We'll talk soon, buddy. Thanks, Mike. See ya.
Have a good night. Perfect timing, Mr. Beehler, as we sign off.
Oh my goodness, my phone died.
Oh. That was a good show, Mark.
Back on. I'm sorry, Jay. I missed that. Last time I didn't get to talk to him either.
Yeah.
His Wi-Fi, I think, was acting up. So, anywho.
Well, we got many more Mondays to go, and you can just see all his catches on our CFN Fish Off website. All right, Mark.
I'll make sure for then I'll have a new phone, or at least Eric is charged up and ready to go. So, yeah. So,
you know what's amazing, Mark? Jace just said him and his son caught 19 species so far.
That's awesome.
That's the total that you and Erica got in 6 weeks, and they've got it in 2 weeks. So it is insane how things have progressed.
And how many did you guys get? 20.
That first year, we only got 22.
That's right. So 22. And how many did you get just on the last day that you were out? 5?
Something like that, yeah.
Give or take, right?
Yeah.
Where this has gone since we started it, I can't even. It's hard to process.
Well,
unbelievable, unbelievable. The amount of amazing anglers out there, and the amazing catches, and the fish care. the fish care has been incredible. I've been watching that, pretty closely, and because that's something, I learned over the years too. I'll admit, at first I wasn't very, very good at it.
Me either.
A lot of fumbling, and you just didn't know how to do it. But eventually you put it together. You're like, geez, I got to get these fish back in the water faster. And you develop a system. And we've been, I think, as a CFN community, we've been very good at educating people on, I don't want to say our mistakes, but our ignorance, maybe. So, yeah, I think everybody's doing a stand-up job.
Well, I know I've made lots of mistakes.
Pardon?
I know I've made lots of mistakes, and I thank those members of the community that have, in a respectful and educational way, pointed them out so that I become better as an angler in terms of handling. Same here. Yeah. No, it's an amazing community. I'm very happy and proud to be part of it, and it's growing and growing every day. It's amazing. It's amazing. You guys all rock. I know why you're watching the scoreboard so closely, Mark, because you have to pick 2 people from the top 25. Yeah, but I'm looking at that top 25. How many are from Ontario? That is true. So it's gonna make your pick very interesting. It is gonna be interesting. Yeah. So we will see. I might only have 2 that I can pick from. I might not be able to draft anybody. I might just say, well, I got these 2 here, and they're from different province. And welcome aboard. So we're gonna have to see how this all plays out. No, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be really cool, really neat. Yeah, when you talk about where we've been and the beginning and where we are now, Ken and I, that first year, Red and I, with Ken's help, we caught 22 species. And then in the last TV season, we caught 74 species. Exactly. That is a massive difference, 22 and 74. Day and night, man, day and night. I think you got that just in points. Yeah. Right? Somewhere in the 70s. So no, that's awesome. I'm loving this. Seeing all these catches, seeing all the great fish handling, seeing the enthusiasm, seeing the kids. A lot of kids catching. I love seeing the kids. Yeah. That's always fun to see, and then I'm looking forward to the 2 weeks that we get to put together, and hopefully we can put something really, really cool together. The fish are cooperating, and we get them to bite. We get them on a bump board and back in the water, and off to the next one. It's going to be fun. Yeah. Well, thanks again, Mark. I know it's 9 o'clock. Your family's waiting. My family's waiting. People haven't ate dinner. Yeah, so. My family was getting restless there, so I had to come up to the truck. So let's just thank everyone for joining us today. Yep. And we will see you tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Tourney Tuesday, and then we'll see you back here, CFN Live, every Monday night. So on behalf of Scotty Martin, who's not here, my good friend Mark Beehler, and all our guests, have a good night, everyone, and we will see you tomorrow, 7 o'clock for Tourney Tuesday. Have a good night, Mark. You too.
Welcome to the next season of the CFN Fish Off. I'm your host, Scotty Martin. Oh, yeah. Oh, boy.
Feels big. Oh, no, don't jump out.
This year, we have 4 teams representing 3 provinces. From Ontario, and our Season 1 champions, Michael Consul and Tennessee.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Also known as...
That was amazing.
The Defenders.
Woo!
We also have our provincial champions from Alberta.
Let's get it, buddy.
Team Hookaholics.
We got a big fish.
With Todd
Here
Boyd
we go, fish on.
and Adam Turnbull.
Hashtag Shimano rules.
We also have our provincial champions from La Belle Province, Quebec. Team Mastercasters.
That's a big one.
With Tim Wisdom, and Alexi Damaris.
We're fishing a rule.
Also from Ontario, we have our two-time online champions, Team Drag Pullers.
Oh, yeah, drag puller.
With Mitch Zanali
Look at that.
and Brandon Kodosky.
Lake Ontario.
The goal of the CFN Fish-Off is to catch as many species of fish as possible. The largest fish in each species
That might be the biggest sturgeon I've ever got.
gets 4 points, and the smallest fish gets 1 point. And the team with the most points at the end of the 6-week competition is crowned our CFN Fish-Off champion.
It's gonna be fun.
And on behalf of McCarthy's Uniforms, the winning team gets to donate $10,000 to the charity of their choice. Now let's check out the action of week 1.